Shirley here with Sirius Dallas Moon. This is Soul Hour Venus Day. Moon is 13 degrees Aquarius, opposing Venus in 12 degrees Leo. Midheaven is 28 degrees Virgo, almost where we're going to have the eclipse. And Ascendant is ruled by Jupiter in the 8th house, malefic 18 degree. So there's a lot of toxic degree. And Mars is squaring Jupiter, so we have big toxic religion fight. While I caretake for my video, let's do some ASMR. Yeah, Mercury 5 degrees Virgo. um, the Virgo stellium. Anyway, while I caretake for a video, and where is it? I'm going to do some ASMR of me caretaking for my fetos and recording. Yeah, BitChute is funny in that way. First of all, a lot of emotional release. I definitely do feel that. Very, very powerful. Just yesterday, I heard a story about a trafficked woman that she had a car accident and then she was drugged in hospital, and the drugs got her addicted to drugs, which was downslope to being kidnapped and trafficked. Just so you know how much effort is dedicated in kidnapping people and trafficking people. It's not, oh, that person was a fool and misguided and so on. No. It's tremendous amount of psychic attack. So on the one hand, there are many junctures, and I actually addressed that when I did For Their Murd. So together with Water Expands Upon Cooling, which was inspired directly by Peter R. de Vries' Misdaad Verslaggever, then I took it from the point of view of astrologer, and I had Uranus crossing my lot of fortune on a 22nd degree. So that was the remedy. And I addressed For Their Murd because I'm like, hey, until somebody's murdered, nobody looks at their case. And even then, when the case is a cold case. And I remember when I was in Netherlands and I didn't find a shelter, and one night I walked in the streets and just walking and dancing and singing to pass the time, because you have to stay warm, and you can't do things that would like draw the attention negatively. So the next morning I was standing to rest after I escaped a woman who tried to traffic me, and she was working for checking the tickets. She called herself Alabina. Nay, Galubina. Not Alabina. Galubina. It was a Friday, and I think the last Friday before Christmas or during Christmas, and it was her colleague got a booster shot, so he left at 1, and they switched the street. She was supposed to be on the other side of the street, and so she was going to take me to a trafficking apartment, and she turned to the right, I turned to the left. And the trafficking apartment belonged to the apartments where those who check the tickets live in the train in Amsterdam. And that was 2022. That was actually 2021 to the Christmas of 2022, before January 2022. And then I was standing next to a cafe, and a lady told me, well, you can't stand here. Naturally, I told her I'm escaping something, and she's like, you can't stand here. And for me, when I would later do Water Expands Upon Cooling, then the first thing I was thinking about is before the murder. Because in as much as anything went, one more night in the street, I could have been murdered easily. And so all that happens, I didn't find a shelter. I had a I had a Dutch passport, I had everything. She thought I was an immigrant because my colors are of my biological color and grandmother's color, grandmother from my mama's side, and I look like a refugee. Okay, I look like somebody who was immigrant. And she said, "You're gonna need 1,000 euros to get a passport." I'm like, "I'm Dutch," and so um, this notion of the 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 little ways in which people guard the rules, so to speak, that keep people that escape trafficking from having a juncture. And I don't even talk about like psychology, psychiatry, and all those junctures. Those are completely MK Ultra Those are MK Ultra structures. They're meant to keep people from healing because then they will remember. So even back then, Ruto was prime minister, and I did not know him like at all. I lived in Israel, so what do I know? Um, when they were talking about this flop case where he didn't have an active memory, to me it was like very obvious. Like if he would remember, he would be tortured until he forgets. So I don't know what is there. So best to say in that case is that you don't remember. Exactly. And so this further mode basically depicts how people are kept from not being murdered. They kept from not being assassinated. Then I turned into political assassination prevention because I realized the way that Peter was assassinated is very similar to the way the common people were assassinated. And I didn't even know what targeted individuals is, but that's the same. That's the same, and I use the same technology as well. So yeah, so that's just a lot of emotional release from their side. Um, all of this, well, there's a litigation against the Dutch government, but the crowdfunding was against, was against one person. Um, and usually the DAO that you can name is not the DAO because these people have handlers, and they are, you know, there's just the people until the people underneath gloved hands do not get caught red-handed, we will not have the full Epstein list, the full Detroit Rolodex, the full, um, you know, the full list of anything. And at the same time, it's not just about the list; it's about the structure that needs to be changed. Because to look at the cold case of someone that even that was life risking 20 years after, this have the very fact that we need to look at the case where it's a cold case, okay? Peter the Free's assassination, only 4 or 5 years after Roland was ordered snuff film of his assassination by somebody, I don't know, Krakow, I don't know where it's at right now. Um, and and again, I'm not saying it's not advocacy for anybody's character. It's just like the fact that people grow in this trafficking states like Israel, and everything is being used. Okay, religion is being used to guys, and everything is being used to create division. They want women whose husband is in those cults to say, oh, this was narcissistic husband, and not really, just swipe it under the rug that all those narcissistic husbands. And before I knew about cloning, I said, why do they all act like they were manufactured in a Ford factory? I kid you not, this is what I said. I know some Dutch lawyer probably has a stock of the things I wrote to Geert Wilders before I knew about cloning, 1996, and Satanic ritual abuse. And I genuinely don't remember, but I remember that I said I should have a booklet of the things that I wrote before I knew about that, because I was studying to political assassination prevention. And, so, but at least you did a satire about Baphomet, right? So, yeah, just a lot of emotional overwhelm from all those really, really challenging, inhumane positions to be at. And I was listening to Trump survivors, it's a lapsus, Epstein survivors calling Trump to do something about that. Um, yeah, I know this. People have like, that sounds meta. I'm like, yeah, but if we say that, we expose another thing, which is to do with the people who represent artists. The system is corrupt. The system, and how did I begin to tend to those things? Peter the Freeze vouching for them Inc. Um, so I was listening to Epstein survivors, and one woman said that when she was a teenager, basically that guy called her for him and abused her and said that if she doesn't bring him another girl and she would get paid for that girl, so he would make her a trafficker, then um, then he will then she will have to come. Now she was afraid of him, 12 years old girl, and she would get the $200 for each girl that came each time. So this makes this young girl, who's now a teenager, a human trafficker. Now that's very likely what they did to Epstein, alongside with a lot of torture. Um, and then, of course, she would be presented as a human trafficker. Okay, um, and that thing is very real, because when you escape that dumbfuckery, you're like, you hate, I think, more the women that were assisting the trafficker, because it's kind of like, hey, um, why didn't you, stand up, turn your violence against them? But since they were abused since a very little children, so this is a part of the fabric that needs to be addressed as well, because this is how people get to be traffickers. It happens at a very young age. And of course, I mean, if somebody needs to defend their life from being trafficked, I mean, you kill the trafficker. It's euthanasia, but also that would prevent. This is another. We talk about for the murder, then this is another door through which, what if a person defending their life from rape? Rape is an act against the desire to live, an act against life energy itself. It is done to steal life energy from a person, to basically steal their consciousness. Um, so it's basically defend. When you defend yourself from rape, you defend your life, and you defend your life, your consciousness, from being taken by people who, instead of doing good for humanity, would do incredible harm to humanity. And by the way, I heard that 2007, there was something 2007 there. Madeleine was murdered 2007. I went through intense ritual abuse and psychological intense ritual abuse. And again, they use a psychic attack um, in that. And it's a cult of personality. So the person would be, let's say that person would drink a couple of beers, okay? Now he's susceptible. That's what happened. The person drank a couple of beers, and he was susceptible to psychically attack, because he was actually a very talented musician, and these people are very intuitive and sensitive to energy. So when he was corrupting his own, and it's probably ritually abused as a child or something like, and when they do that, they have to perpetuate the abuse. Um, this is why, to turn the aggression against the abuser as fending for yourself. Okay, I'm not talking about revenge here. Um, then this is kind of like limits, like kind of like how you treat the fungi. Okay, you block the way of the fungi to spread, and then you begin to dissolve the fungi. That's and lo and behold, this is what I'm treating attempts to sexually assault me as I speak. Um, Now, if you ask what do you do to protect against a sexual assault, well, some of the things they would use certain things, okay, because what they need to do is to get into the consciousness of, let's say, a living object, and try to get consciously to assault, and so, or they would do like a voodoo, and basically to take a living object or to find that living object and point the energy direct towards the attacker while speaking up, you will see that you begin to understand why do they sexually attack, when do they sexually attack, what do they don't want exposed, and then expose it further. Then what happens? They have, it's called spiritual jail, and spiritual jail. What I figured is like they work with some, yeah, to try to block the throat chakra. They work with some energies that are really, you're gonna feel like weird energies. You see when I do that thing, it's like I take out it's kind of like a gassy energy, but of polluted gas. Polluted gas chambers, is gas chambers energy. Now, sometimes when you combat that, you're going to channel back what they send you. For example, you find yourself, and you go into almost ecstasy, okay? You find yourself when you combat that, so you find yourself saying, I don't know, you should all be dying in the gas chambers. And you're like, okay, you're communicating Nazis that are building gas chambers for people as attack on the light. And you just point that gas chamber energy back at the attackers. Um, okay, so this is something that, you see, it neutralizes that. It neutralizes that. um, so, yeah. So that's what's up. Because when you listen to the affirmation stuff, for some people it works, but then they try to neutralize that, and then what happens? The more they try to neutralize your defenses, the more they expose the reasoning why they attack, and then the entire thing goes into the light. More the true. So yeah, the true is the Dutch Epstein. Um, what's more? Yeah, we're waiting for it to upload. Now, if you know astrology, you're going to pay. Oh, again, I said astrology. Again, attempts to sexually assault me. So let's see if it develops anywhere. Yes, it does. Um, very, very polluted gas energy. Polluted gas energies. Those who do that are polluting the gas, the spraying. Oh, you know those sprays that they have on the gardens? That they have like a cyanide, not cyanide, as was the Hitler used that. No. Um, he used it in the gas chamber. No, Cyclone B. On slow release. So some people are behind that. Now the crime's being exposed. Yeah. People are bleeding. People are bleeding. Okay. The taste of blood. I don't know. I have no idea. Somebody's bleeding. Hopefully that's not me. Um, this is why I say, except for euthanasia, never coerce people. Only self-defense, and you're gonna see sometimes when you have this anger, what are the things you want to say to the person that has to do with the attack, but you always say to known and unknown. I don't know, I don't think I was bleeding. I was not bleeding. I don't know. It was the taste of blood. Somebody is bleeding in the mouth. I guess they sent something really bad my way. And I said, if you know astrology, then you can see when do they target, what hour. They're gonna use Saturn hour a lot because Saturn is to do with Saturn. And again, some people use turn to Satan or Lucifer to heal from basically ritual abuse. I don't know if they know it from let's say trafficking and stuff like that. And I'm like, cool, if that works for you, fantastic. Um, that being said, they're gonna use the planets to attack. So they're gonna use the malefics, and you see what hour, day and hour. The hour that they use is important, and the transit, the moon's transit. Okay, and so this is how you know also what they want to attack. So that is a way to begin to expose further. And this is how we treat it. Okay, basically not allowing those attacks to go further, and then begin to expose them. So there's a lot of dissolution of the darkness that is happening right now. Yeah, while caretaking for a video. So yeah, and moving to the next sheet, a little bit of, and I'm working with those peelings, body peelings. Attempt to attack my hands. No, no, my hands are mine. Thank you. Um, and those body peelings, just to refresh, rejuvenate skin while caretaking for my little video. Now, if you are uploading videos or content creator, use astrology, because you see on this website is astroseek.com. Everything's free. Not only is that free, it's not even donation based because Peter has his own job and so on, and he's not accepting donations. So um, and this is so because he doesn't want to be stressed to appease anybody that donate him money. So that's the reason behind that. Um, and through that you can see hours to avoid, usually Saturn hour, Mars hour. Now they would try to do magic to end things, so it would be Saturn and so on. They would try to interfere or make people do something inefficiently, or make somebody do mistakes and so on. And yeah, they just want to attack what is loving. It's kind of like that annoying. Anybody that had an annoying brother or sister, so it has an annoying brother energy, but this one is beyond that. Okay, it's the trafficking annoying brother energy. and so and that is yeah, basically that's what they try to do. I mean, disturb the peace and so on and so forth. um, and the more people are exposing that, then the less economic it becomes to do that, because they try to profit off of another person's suffering, and also they try to profit off of their own suffering in that sense. um, because as we transmute darkness, but we basically gain wealth, but yep, but they try to steal light, very simply put. So they create a void of darkness, but then what happens is very satirical, because when they create a void of darkness, they can't contain the light. And so it's really so. And so they want people's light, so they do a void of darkness, and they do manifest a lot of light people around them, okay? But they can't handle the light, because they created a void of darkness. And this is also how they get exposed, okay? Because their actions are becoming, it's like the only way in which they can process the light is like this, it's like the light bounces off of them, so they're being exposed, because it's kind of like bringing light to the places that were dark, but creating more darkness, and then it exposes the darkness. And so the only way in which those rituals um, work eventually is that it sheds light on that darkness. So they try to steal the light and attack the light. What happens is the light is bouncing off of the real mechanism. For example, if the murderer, think about the land case. Well, not the land case, let's say a missing person. The person is missing, we don't know who did that. Okay? Versus think about a case where, hey, that person was murdered. This is the person that we saw on camera doing that. Both are the same case. And anybody who ever tended to cold cases or true crime will tell you that they can't say it, but that's true. And understanding that is the first motion. Now they're going to want to be visible, even from an ego point of view. Um, so I had a guy attacking me one day, until I did not say to him, "You are a Nazi war criminal who should die, I don't know, in the death camp or something," he would not leave me alone. And then after I said that, I said, "Oh, stop raping, I don't know." Then he gets frustrated. He didn't get what he wanted. Um, and so those intense attacks on the spirit are basically the attempt to bring person to the physical facet of whether being sacrificed or something, or I don't know. And this is, for example, before sexual harassment happens, there's a lot of unnerving, confusing, and so on and so forth that's done, to get to the person's energy because they need to dismantle the other person while somehow staying stable to puppeteer them, but the puppeteer is puppeteered. So, and also to do those horrible things, they need to get into psychosis. And what is the treatment of psychosis? Not more pills or drugs, actually housing first to believe the patient. Now, sometimes drugs will work for a while because the frequency of the sleeping drug is a little bit less terrible than the frequency of the abuser, but then the person will begin to recover and speak. Um, and then the drug will not help anymore. And so this is why people get, on the spirit level, this is why, or memory level, and then the drug interferes with their mineral absorption, basically kills them. It's basically a destruction drug marketed as medicine. Um, yeah. So now when you think about, okay, I'm wondering about something. Anyway, yeah, there's a lot of emotional release when we caretake to ourselves. And the more a part of a body is difficult to clean, it's kind of like the more is congested within there. Um, but then the more attention it requires. And so people, what happens is that things we didn't give attention to, karmically we begin to give attention to. Oh, the smells. Okay, I'm working with, this product is called Islavito Aromatic Body Scrub. And the scents are patchouli, vanilla, and sea salts. I don't know if the company is like a good company or not. I just like this product. If it's ethical company or not, then I have no idea. If you do, then you can leave a comment. Um, and yeah, when I used to go to the Dead Sea, then I used to just do it in the Dead Sea. I would scrub my feet. But now, like common person, I'm using like a commoner. I'm using a body scrub. Um, I'm scrubbing my nose as well. Very rejuvenating, very on point for Saturn ruling Pluto, and very relaxing. Oh my god. Um, where is my water? I drank an entire bottle of water, and I'm thirsty again. Um, Speaking about the water, yeah. But tips for if your landlord is crooked or not. The landlords that are crooked will not have good water in their houses. So let's say you're gonna have tenants, okay? The basis is they will have clear water and fresh air. If the landlord does not provide for that and include it in the price of the estate, then they are with those who try to make you pay for the water and pay for the air. For me, this was one of the first signs. Um, the problem was that I didn't have, like, I was just being activist around other things, so that I would tend to that later. But he was crooked because he wanted me to pay for the water, and he didn't say it firsthand. He claimed that I used the water, but I didn't use the water overly. Um, and I was like, um, you know, okay, at first I thought it's stemming from him not pricing himself well um, as a business person, and he was like, okay, that's a very weird, a tricky way to tackle that. But I didn't understand that this was a part of those plans to destroy humanity type of thingy. And he was with the traffickers, so in fact, for many years, um, he was doing that in apartments that he was running as a realtor. Um, they work as they don't work alone. Okay, so but these are treason cults, and so, so yeah. Um, should I talk about the fact that certain leaders are trafficking or participating in trafficking to certain other leaders to get No, no. To get favored. To get favored is allegedly, but that is. It's interesting because Schwab was litigated for sexual harassment, sexual misconduct, um, and so yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway, yeah, housing. Now, when I was in between houses, I was really laughing at myself because I was like, "What do I want? A house? What am I gonna do when I have a house? Travel, because you need the base to, you need the basis to travel from. You know, like those people, even people that want to do like dream work, astral projection, like benefically, then they need to ground themselves well, and they need to have a home-based body, and so and that body they need to take care of well, and this is why people that they put people out of the ability to take care of themselves because they don't want people to do the psychic abilities when they are actually embodied, because they can connect the dots. They can, like, oh, political assassination prevention, of course. I mean, trafficked people, both assassin and assassin, and it's like extortion calls and so on. It's like, oh, that, yeah. Because when they rape people um, to not be embodied during self pleasure or love making, they basically fragment the soul. That's what it is. And then they would put artificial rules of like traditional family values, which are rapey. So this is that's basically how it works. Um, yeah. So now the funny thing with all those things, people do need connection. They do need. They do get lonely. They do get like, and the more people are into those, and this isolation is actually both bringing people apart and together. So yeah, me working on my piggy toe, releasing all them trapped emotions. I think it's time now. All the people that were working on the neat gloved hands get corporate handed, and now they have to expose more and more of how it works. So there is a dissolution of the darkness, because people need housing. I mean, you think about it. If there is a war, somebody benefits from that war, then other people should not pay for the person that benefited from the war when they were the victims. So if you like rent an apartment and somebody wants you to pay for the water and they don't have like fresh water included, um, whether it's distilled water or whatnot included, uh, and fresh distilled water and fresh air. Okay, when it's in the good temperature, so fresh air, good temperature. This is basis. If they don't give you this basis, then they are a part of the people who want to control humanity, and they are working with those Epstein ring par excellence. Okay, you see, those are like the red flags for that, for the housing market, um, because because it will not be safer. For example, the house I was living in, very, 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 very good neighborhood. Very, very. I walked during the day, during the night, and I saved the place, saved the place, saved the place. Eventually, it was the landlord and the realtor. So when I say landlord, it's like those who own the estate. They are like, if that's your estate and somebody did that, then you owe dividends to the tenant because you benefited from that tenant being abused. It's like you didn't know, you didn't this. Okay, you need to stop that and you need to pay the dividends for the tenant because you made wealth on a tenant being abused. That's why when I stopped doing astrology readings, because I said, wait, in what currency? How will people pay me? Both because it's like, okay, how do I know that, like, let's say I charge $300, okay? Tomorrow the dollars go bankrupt. Or tomorrow the bank goes, I don't know. So how do I know what to charge and how to charge? And then I tend to the currency and so on and so forth. And more things arise, but I was putting it on delay. Now some people can't put it on delay, so they do it through other things. They tend to that, okay? Um, like exposing Peter rings. You see, an American doesn't have a welfare, so they have to work. So they expose Epstein. What can they do, right? And then they expose names and more names and more names and more names because they need to pay the rent and they need to work, and uh, um, and they don't have the time to expose mechanisms. But the other people have the time to expose mechanisms. Like this lady when she was 12 years old, um, and then as an adult, she exposed the mechanism of how she basically became a human trafficker because that's what she was doing. She was human trafficking her girlfriends at 12. And even as adults, these people, they have these child qualities because they never really got to be children. And then the reaccessing of the child is done through those trafficking situations. Um, yeah. And dissociation and lack of consciousness and all of that. Whew. That there was some snipping of some neck vertebrae. With my pinky toe. And then some people just have hatred. Like, really hatred. My psychologist had hatred for me, the child. He was working so hard to bring me, the child, to the room. And then he had like rage attacks towards the child. And you see that he was trafficked because he was trafficked to be a psychologist. Now, when I started to do astrology, they wanted to traffic me to be an astrologer, but I was like, no, I'm exposing that. um, and yeah, recording. And I told him the children will speak. We the children, we the people, we the children. Um, it was one time when he was trying to assassinate me. I said, I'm not making you into a murderer. Well, probably already was. So, then he had hatred for me, tremendous hatred. over nothing, but no. Severe cult because sending all kinds of people. Like talked about it. You see the same person through different people. And again, we will people that want to tend to the Epstein list and want their children not to be trafficked. It's like you're gonna have to get sci-fi because the science behind what keeps that what creates those trafficking situations is going to sound like sci-fi. I ran into that while being a researcher on in academia as well, because I tended to the science and body mind and question and philosophy of science, and the core issues that enable those things. So it affects what people know about the world, both from a religious spiritual perspective, because they have a spiritual fragmentation, and all of us are recovering from that, of course, but they have a spiritual fragmentation, and that affects the sciences as well. For those who are interested, 222, as I speak about that, is mediumship. Mediumship. Um, yeah. Oops, a lot of caretaking for a video to upload. Well, I am. They're just zones in our toes that are so difficult to reach and clean. And they catch dirt so easily. And it's about the bone structure as well. Ah, so fixing the bone structure, particularly of the side that was associated to being more susceptible, um, or permeable. Yeah. Oh, ninth house. That needs a separate video, but I'll start now. Whatever you have in the ninth house, whichever planet that you have in the ninth house, to fulfill the mission of this planet, you're going to need to get also spiritual, philosophic, and scientific, and sometimes travel. Ah. And then the people that want that travel to be, and they're there, that people try to traffic me still. Some of them exposed human traffickers. Um, and those who read energy and voices can understand and connect the dots. Um, However, there may be attempts to use another person's energy to guise oneself. So again, the people underneath gloved hands are getting caught red-handed. This is why when we do return to sender, we say known and unknown. Okay? So the original sender, known and unknown. Um, or known and or unknown, so that it will go to the original sender. And just the attempts they try to create chaos so that people will create confusion is also creating the confusion around what they want to get from that. Because let's say they want, think about it, the assets in Monaco, they're not listed anywhere. So basically, if you can protect yourself psychically and so on, and physically, you can just drop into any asset in Monaco, and nobody will be able to do anything legal against you because it's not listed. You're not trespassing if it's not listed. You understand? So now they do that all the time. They just don't allow the common people to do it. And I kind of think we're heading towards times where the common people are going to begin to do that. Um, Now, if you think about it, a clear energy walking through those assets without being sacrificed is purifying, is purifying the home. But it's true. Um, you see, that's why when I was living in a trafficking apartment, and I didn't know it, and that's the thing that I tried to sage the place for 3 years, and then and that was the deal. Okay, that's what happened um, because the people that decided they trade people, it's like the person never consented to that, and so all of their vows and contracts are illegal, and their jails are spiritual as well. So you might see people in like big mansions having tremendous psychic attacks, which they try to put on another person. Now that other person eventually, would defend themselves. Um, and so this is how maybe the CEOs got assassinated. But for some, they defend themselves also on the spiritual level, and then everybody gets the attack that they sent. And those who are only defending themselves are like beginning to prosper. Um, Now, when people are held accountable, it's a different energy. So it kind of begins to allow some light in to the level that they are able to digest it. The rest of the light bounces off, and that exposes what they did. And this is, yeah, light work. When they say light workers, I was like, ah, ha, ha, ha. No, that's what it means. It's like physics. So the analogy of the sun rays, and with Pluto and Aquarius, the sun is beginning to reach where it's farthest from the sun. Um, so it's the science and the spirit. You see, clean your feet. That begins to expose some stuff. Caretaking for a video. For how long has it been? Almost an hour it takes to upload. It's not that much, 37 minutes. So, but bless BitChute. It's good exposure so far. Again, if there are trafficking codes there, then um, anybody has an initiation to do social media that is not, how should I say that are not coming from naval moon nakshatra, because I have a naval moon nakshatra, and all the creators have that, um, and that would create a karmic rope with the creators. Or we also need social media created purely without naval moon nakshatra people, because this is where all of us naval moon nakshatra will be able to post our social media um, with easier. Um, so, yeah, the moon nakshatra is teaching a god from Lada Duncheva. She has Magha moon, same as the Pope. When I think about that. Um, so Magha moon is connected. Magha, I don't remember, but it's not naval nakshatra. Um, Other astrology teacher that I learned from was Chris Brennan. He has the nakshatra, moon nakshatra, that's connected to the head. I don't remember the name. Um, and yeah, this is what I know. Almost done. Oh, about the ninth house. Um, so you want to tend to the body organ that ninth house is associated with. For example, I have Saturn in the ninth house, and it took a delay for me to learn how to tend to my feet more correctly. And my Saturn also has is ruling over Pluto. Nay, yes, is co-present with Pluto. So it took also my Pluto square, which is removing fungal structures, and it is also my ruling over my Neptune. I'm in my Neptune square, so I think that's evident. Neptune rules drugs, channeling, um, frauds, um, uh, um, secret societies, media, and acting or filming. Oh, for those of you that, oh God, the people that went to ritual abuse, and some of them, many of them were actors and actresses, and some people were afraid to develop their storytelling abilities and got into documentaries just because they were afraid to not be believed. Again, the attempts to blame shift on the people that are doing the testimony only backfire towards those who are doing those attempts, and then perhaps they can find ways that are more benefic to themselves and the world and the people that maybe were surviving of their crimes. I don't know. Some of them know, some of them don't. Um, and yeah, video title. What am I gonna call my previous video? What did I talk about? Oh, the Epstein stuff. Um, oh wait, Saturn. That was the Saturn in end of Pisces. Yeah. And wait. Okay. I think we're good.